Yeah, we're good. So we call the meeting to order? Yeah? Do I need a second for that?
Sorry?
Do I need a second for that?
No, you say I call.
Call the meeting to
of the-
order, that's it. It is 3 o'clock on the dot on Thursday, the 18th of June. Proud of us, we're starting right away. All right, do the invocation?
Heavenly Father, teach us that even if we can't do great things, we can at least do small things in a great way. May we always be sincere in our efforts to help others in need. Now bless our town and our leaders for your service. In His name we pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the
Flag.
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
They're never synced up when you do Zoom.
No.
Public comment, anyone? Or get told? Since we don't have anyone here, we move to approval of minutes.
Forrest Kritzer, for the record, I move that we approve the minutes as was printed on the internet. Forrest.
I got him. Second. All right. Yeah. All right, I guess for,
Have a vote.
what?
Yeah, all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Don't we need to sign in?
If we can do roll call, that would be fine.
Okay.
I think that's what y'all had decided.
Oh, yeah, we've done it
You're just
both
gonna
ways.
do
I don't
roll-
remember if there was a final. Just roll call?
Let's just
Okay.
just do roll call.
Want to start?
Corbett Demars.
Rebecca Weber.
Ms. Stockton?
Forrest Kritzer.
Beach, council liaison.
Okay. Now we can move on? Yeah? All right. Crab member items and reports for discussion. Let's move through this list and see where, if anybody wants to discuss it. I know we put a lot of things on hold after COVID.
And you know, it's, you guys can start from scratch if you want with your agenda. It's really up to you.
I know that the last thing that we talked about had a lot to do with, apps and statues and murals and all of that being in the hands of town council. And you guys asked me to speak at town council. One of the things I expressed is that there is a conversation of legally whether we are technically allowed to set our own agenda, because our purpose is to be advised by the council, and then we are to advise the council on that thing. And so I know we've had discussions of whether or not we can do that and how much approval we have. The last thing I asked is for them to give us something to discuss. But obviously, the world went to hell in a handbag. So here we are. Are there any updates on any of these items?
You know, like you said, this COVID and the kind of the distractions we've had with other things. I've mentioned the maps a few times. Really haven't gotten a lot of traction with it. War Memorial is part of the Bayfront Park
Is,
discussion.
okay?
It was and you guys, I'm not sure where we get to that larger Bayfront discussion, but it's still part of the conversation.
Okay. Has anyone spoke to you about that?
I fulfilled the Crab's request to go to the meeting and spoke on behalf of it. And it wasn't in the original plans
Okay,
for the War Memorial. But the second time that they came out with, after I talked to the designer and he met with the council, it was in the second design. They haven't decided exactly in what way they were going to do anything with it. There was talk of one such suggestion I didn't like, and I spoke to that fact. And then I guess we're going to talk about Bayside or Bay Park some, because I have more to add to that discussion, unless you want me to do it now.
well, before we get there, because that's next, is there anything else Anybody reached out to you about the app? Is there, not everything's the way it was when we left off?
Oh, I know we now have a public information officer. A lot was waiting on her to come in. Is she in now? Have you talked to her at all, Becky?
That's good, though.
I've seen she's done some things on the website that look, you know, I mean, like, there's like a monthly update on things, and it was a lot easier to find out information on what's open, what's closed, et
The
cetera.
social media presence is better. I definitely see, there's like activity, purposeful activity, you can tell. Well, that,
Jen,
I think
to do
that,
something or to be involved in some way.
yeah, I think that kind of all of it, which we're going to move past here in 2 seconds, maybe when and if we meet again, there is the discussion of whether or not you want to sign us something as a council, or wait until you need us, or
With my long tenure in various advisory committees, it's really ebbed and flowed a lot, because MRF is considered not an advisory committee, it's kind of like the LPA. They have a little more latitude. But years ago, there was a makeup of the town in the chamber that really didn't want to hear from the advisory committee unless they were given something specifically to do. Subsequent advisory or councils went as far as they intentionally did not have a liaison from the council very often, because they wanted the committees to be more independent.
okay?
So a specific action. I haven't read this council in particular, but I think the council is I think, up for good ideas.
Okay.
I encourage independence and free thinking, because that's a lot of the value you bring to this town, is being able to come up with solutions that are not thought of, or perceive problems that have not been.
Okay.
Convenient shortcut through here.
It is.
I think that gives us something to think about, what our next meeting would look like if that's the case, or if we would need to come to council first with permission to pursue an idea. We wanted to do an event, like, I mean, it's government, nothing is easy, so.
One maybe way to pursue this, Gina, is to, brainstorm. If people have ideas, bring them to the committee, talk about them, develop them a little bit, and then bring them in the slot of the advisory committee section of every council meeting.
Okay.
Bring a report and say, this is what we'd like to work on, and then you can get, at that point, get the buy-off from town council with it saying, okay, we don't want this, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it's also good, one place we've kind of stumbled before is having a clear handoff. This was pretty specific with the app, right? I mean, Becky did a great job of developing a prototype, which is what it always going to be. But then it should have been turned over to somebody else, and that turnover really never happened.
So I think the best thing to do at this point is, when it comes to that in our future agenda, we can all mull it over. If somebody has an idea of something you think we should pursue, email Christy and see what happens. In the meantime, I felt it was necessary, if you guys agreed, to meet, only because Bayside Park has been on our agenda. And a lot of, if our job is to advise the council, maybe we should just have a discussion, collect our thoughts, and then I'll send an email or come speak at the next council meeting. So it doesn't have to be like an incredibly long drawn-out thing, but I guess let's start talking about it, if that's okay. You want to start? I know you already said you had some. No, go ahead.
Christy Corey, can I just state for the record, I didn't want anyone to think that the app has just fallen off. I did have a conversation with Jenny Dexter this morning, who is our PIO, because I did hand it over to her once she came on board. And I wanted to let you know that she actually sent me the topics. So the first page I gave you was the topics for Text My Gov.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, so this is what they're going to use, more so people can type in, and I particularly, of course, like the utilities, so that's what I'll just base off of. But you can type in utilities and then get an option for a link to pay it'll take you to the online bill pay, or permits or other things. So you'll be able just to text a word, and it'll take you either to the place on the website, or it'll take you to the link where you need to go. But she did, and I specifically asked her about the app. And by the way, this Text My Gov is probably going to launch in the next week.
Very cool.
The app she's using to redesign the website. So I wonder that, I think that's even bigger. I was really excited about that. So they're going to use Civic Plus again, which is what the current website runs off of. And she's using the app to redesign the website based on how the app looked. So I think that I was pretty excited about that, to know
very
that she
cool.
was going to use all your work to redesign
It's a guidebook.
and that's going to take a while, and she said it was probably going to be about a 6-month process on the, redesign of the web. But that's what they're going to use that for, so I was pretty happy to hear it. So I didn't want you to think that the app just fell off, because it definitely did not.
Thank you for the update.
This is interesting. So the idea here, and I've heard about this, so is this more of a thing that people use now to be connected, where they'll, it's used in other places where you text keywords to a number and then you get sent a link?
Correct.
You laugh, Becky. Serious moment.
That's it, I mean, maybe I'm an old fart, but it seems like I mean, a lot of our visitors, I think of people who don't have a phone that is connected to the internet, like people who maybe come from Europe or their phone. Well, or me, I should say, when I travel, it's a lot easier to get internet access than it is to have a phone as a phone. I'm not sure how much more accessible this is to people than to have, a web page or an app which have a very similar functionality.
There's some way.
And
What do you mean?
the other question is, how is this going to be advertised, notified? Are people going to know this exists and how to use it?
Yeah, I didn't get into a lot of detail with Jenny this morning. She sent me this for my information, and I just wanted to let you all know. Like I said, she said it would launch in the next week or so I don't know their plans, Jenny's plans or Roger's plans on how they're going to launch it or let people know exactly yet.
This is going to take a place of the way we're doing it now. Going to the internet and looking up.
I think it's an addition.
Yeah, it's going to be in addition
It's
to.
an additional way to communicate to, sounds like it's just maybe easier to,
It just has links.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you can do it
it's
from your
in the
phone in text
current
form.
way you do it today, but this is just, there's, I guess, that aren't from the website or.
Yeah.
Apps. But then link shoot is something where you're going to have to, I mean, my dad's flip phone probably wouldn't be much help with this. There's still
dad's
flip
flip
phones out
phone.
there.
Hey, let's see how it works, maybe.
I know my
Why don't you
uncle
get in
has
there?
one. Don't give it up.
Next town. I think it'd be cool. Probably one of those things too, until you get in there and use it.
I think that does kind of lead to something that we do have on the agenda, and that's the idea of the maps. Now, we did have a member of our committee who actively getting quotes for what those maps would cost to put around town, and then he, I think, left the committee. That would be a place where you could tell, somewhere this is going to have to be. I mean, I would assume that on signs, accesses around town, the physical map be a good place to advertise this. Saying want information, text down to this number.
There are on the beach access signs, but I mean, that has to be, I'm not sure that that's a topic for us to discuss
Well, it's kind of
at this point.
map, app, and brochure thing is here, the agenda. So it's something I can bring to council. I can say, okay, here's what's going on. You want Crab to get involved in coming up with ideas for maps, or is it just something we just give to town?
Yeah. It just seems like they're on a steamroll place right now when it comes to what they're doing for advertising and rebranding. And so maybe until that's kind of settled and started moving, I'm not sure how adding another what we would offer as a committee. I mean, I'm willing to figure that out. Give us a job, liaison, and,
You're saying, Bill, that under these categories of town, utilities and such, you would have another one that said map?
No, the idea is that a physical map, like you see all over tourist towns, where it says, you are here,
Yeah.
and then what's around you, including things like bathrooms. I didn't see anything. Is there a bathroom here?
That's all part of the map idea, but
Yeah, so the idea on that physical map, you would have information on the map, and you would say, more information, text, et cetera, to this number. People know to do that, because, most of our visitors are so transient, they have no idea that any of this stuff exists.
I think probably the reason they're going to launch this in the immediate is due to like the climate of not, like, most of this text town or COVID to find out about CDC, council members' information, or Department of Health, local information, so that you don't have to come in and ask. Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct.
And then environment and beach and leisure is always here, because obviously we already have those links, why not add them? But I think the purpose of this in the immediate, so that it's probably for our residents more so than tourists, to say, text town if you need help or information, so you don't have to walk in this building. Or COVID.
A lot of, it's very similar to what the app does, a different way to get there. Something, get a link, go to the link. Otherwise, you bring up an app, you go to the web page. Really, it's just a different way to get to the same place. The way I see it. If you want anybody to use it, they have to know it's out there.
Oh. What's our new PIO, POI, what is it?
Oh, Jenny Dexter.
She handles our marketing as well? Or is that a separate person?
We don't have necessarily someone in-house. I can find that out for you, because I know there was a marketing firm.
Yeah.
I haven't heard a lot about it, so.
Because that would be,
To-
the review of what he's talking about would fall under how are you, curious how she's going to market at this, put it out there. But if she's running social media, I guess that's the first way.
I would suggest, because I know that, during an emergency, or town text out residents.
Mm-hmm.
If they have their, I advise text be sent out about this
Action.
when it goes.
Yeah, good idea.
That way that people know as the first step.
I'll just,
Now, because so many people really don't know it. I went and talked to a ton about Bayside. I could have feedback for the meeting.
Same. Well, let's move on. Is that okay with you?
It's okay, but I think we're getting to kind of a point here is, okay, we have, and I understand, I think that sending stuff out with an alert message that's meant to be, watch out, your life is in danger, and sending out marketing type of things or informational things.
Oh.
I think that's maybe a bit of a line to cross. I mean, certainly social media outreach, and the town does that now. That's a very good idea, but I think maybe the discussion to have is, how do we have plenty of information. The web, of course, is full of it, right? The town has links on their website. We have this to get people to those links. Then how do we connect the real people? People who are coming on to here from Guy Acres or Miami, weekend or for the week, or coming from some other state, that might want some of this information. How do we do that? One thing I think about is like, maybe some of it is very compartmentalized, where you could put if there's if they come up with like a turtle thing, then you can put that on the turtle, marked signs. You can say information, text turtle to some number, and the link.
Is that the point of this?
I was under the impression that that's what the point
Okay.
is.
Okay, so I've
Again, I think this is very limited. I, only asked for this morning.
just to let us know what was going on.
Yeah, just so I could
Okay.
get an idea, because again, Jenny sent out an email to all of the directors asking, what would you prefer, what would you like in your, so if someone texts utilities, what would you like them to have a link to? What's the most, important thing? So I think, I'm not sure how far this has gotten yet, is my point.
Okay.
It's all fairly new. I know that I haven't even had a chance to answer her on that. So she took what, she got on the website and determined what are the most clicked links on the utility, and she took that, because I hadn't even had a chance to
Right.
get back to her. So I'm sure that more things can be added to this
Yeah,
as
because
it
that's like
comes along.
a
I
potentially
haven't-
really cool tourist thing, like you
I haven't been a huge part of it, but that's
said, little thing.
that's why I asked for the information this morning, just because, well, my main concern was the app, and I just didn't want anyone to think that it had been dropped, so just wanted to let you know what we're going to use for now. Then I did want to mention, because as the utility, I am the one that uses Code Red, which is what we use to text people, email people, call people about boil water notices, and then the town uses it for hurricanes, and I'll send out alerts for that. And it can be used for a lot of things. We can use it to inform people of anything that's going on. What I have found personally with that is it seems like you can't please everyone all the time. So I'm either sending out too much or not enough. So it's one of those things that, you tend to send something out. And we were doing it before Irma. We were trying to send updates quite often. We had a lot of people call and say, take us off the list. We're watching this on the news. We don't need to be
Updated by
texted and emailed by you too. So it's just one of those things. Try to, use it for emergencies when it's like that.
So, I mean, I'm, open to suggestions from the committee about, if you want to get involved in this, or do you want to see where it goes, or further direction from council?
I mean, I would assume if maybe some of this is going to be a little trial and error as it launches, and then that, I think we would need some direction of how we can help this project, other than maybe once it launches, if we're really intentional about using it and taking some feedback, I think help in that way, unless there's something else you think we should do.
Well, it'd be interesting, because I'm sure there'd be metrics on how much people are using this. When they launch it, it would be interesting to see what those metrics are that people, because, the first thing is, people have to know they want the information. Then they have to know this is around in this way. Sure, how much use they'll get out of it, but,
We can bring Jenny in. I mean, and she had, she told me, she's like, well, let me know if you need me or if you want to come in. So, when we have our next meeting, I can always have Jenny come in, because she said it was going to launch next week. So I always ask her if she can come into our next meeting and talk about it, and we can see.
Maybe after it comes out in or whatever, or she wants us to have helped with back from that type of thing, make the most sense for showing it to what it does right now. And I'm sure that there's plans to, depending on how this works, to possibly expand it or add things. And at that point, maybe, what's your opinion? Have you
Yeah.
heard something?
Give us
And we
clear
could provide
direction, how we
feedback.
can help, yeah,
Yeah.
into that. I mean, we're all very opinionated, we could sit and have opinions about it all day, but I think maybe, how can we help? I think it's really a cool thing, and it has the potential to be even cooler, if there's a way we can help that and help, and just give us some clear direction on how to do so. If they want it. she's got a plan and she don't want to hear what we have to say.
Oh, I think she greatly appreciate the
Okay.
input. So I will absolutely speak to her after.
Yeah, I'm into it, like, either way.
Well, you know, maybe we should jump into talking about Bayside Park, since I think everyone has gotten a lot of,
Yeah, are we ready to move on? Maybe we should just kind of take turns of what we've heard and how we feel. Obviously, there'll be minutes from this meeting that can maybe help us compile something concise to put together for council. I know, maybe we start with Forrest, because you said you talked to them already about the War Memorial, and what they were going to do, what they are going to do.
Can I interrupt, though?
Yeah,
I saw the tail end of the council meeting, and you could never understand what Roger's saying, sitting on the microphone. And I couldn't figure out, in the end, what was decided by the council in terms of whether or not to proceed on the 30% design. I honestly couldn't figure out what was decided.
I think they had decided to move beyond the 30, we did, on the, beyond the 30% design at the previous meeting. At the last meeting that's hold.
Okay.
You know, we don't meet for the entire month of July, so it's.
All right, so
giving
that gives
until
us an
August
idea of where
3rd.
we stand.
There's
Thank you.
plenty of time to air this out and get opinions.
yeah. And that's the purpose of putting it on hold, pending some community discussion?
Exactly,
Okay,
just like this.
okay. Make sure, like, there wasn't another reason. Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
We're going to give you a brief history of this.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, of course, you know, it used to be Fountain Park, and then the previous town and council didn't want to do the maintenance on the fountain, so they kind of chopped that up a little bit. About a year ago, we were asked this committee was to look in and suggest some ideas for the park, which we did. That was sent to council. It was sent to the people who designed it. Then, how many months ago we met with the Anchorage Committee, Norbert? Probably 6 months ago?
February, maybe, January, February, something like that.
Yeah. We had a joint meeting with the Anchorage Committee and Crab, and Norbert and I were there. Anchorage Committee, everybody was there, and they came wanting a building, wanting an upland facility. We discussed it at some length, trying to find a way that we can make it work. I had some concerns, I expressed them. I think Norbert had some concerns. I had some concerns over legality of putting it there, since it's a right-of-way, it's not a owned property, and it's not a building that's open for the entire public. But it went to council, and council, the previous council decided that they wanted to go forward with the building, the original building, which is going to be where the stage is. It's bigger, and then the stage would still be underneath it, and then above it would be the laundry, and above that, a roof as a view. That was the original plan. Then fairly recently, because it's been going around for a year, but it's been changing a lot. So people say they really they were not informed of what's going on. In some ways, it's been going on for a long time. There's been a lot of public meetings. In some ways, things have changed pretty rapidly. And since since we're paying people money to actually stand and do the design, then those things are not particularly as public as they have been in the past. So they found there were some utilities that caused them to not be able to put the building where they were going to, because they can't build over the main sewer and water for either they can't, or it's just not a good idea to build over those utilities. And they came up with this design. The Anchorage Committee looked at this, the first ones to look at it, and they were overwhelmingly supportive, what I heard. Then it went to the town council, and that's when a lot of the public came out and were speaking about it, lead up to that meeting, when these plans were actually released with this new design. And now, since then, of course, a lot of the neighbors who were there, and there's a long story between this, but a lot of people who were around it, which is Nurse Nellie's, Snug Harbor, and Harbor House. They are the immediate neighbors, and they are overwhelmingly against it, and I think for a number of different reasons. I think that this park has been kind of the backyard for Nurse Nellie's for some time, and a lot of people just like it unobstructed, even if it's simple. I think that there's a lot of people who are looking at just the negative aspects of this design. Things like, it is a structure. You have to put, with ADA, you have to put in elevators, you have to put in stairs. That's going to block some of the view. This probably doesn't block it as much as the previous one did, but for some people in the Harbor House, it's going to be impediment to the view out to the back bay. A lot of people are also looking at it as just the upland service facility when it's more than that. It has a stage integrated in it. It's supposed to be a venue. There is the top floor, which can be used for private venues, can be concessioned out to somebody, and it's accessible to the general public. And then there's a middle floor, which is where the laundry and the bathrooms are going to be. Top floor is going to have a bathroom, so there will be always public bathroom there. Middle floor is going to be, all the facilities there are going to be controlled by people who are in the park. So it's like an Oreo, and that upland service facility is. The rest of it is a little different. Now, I haven't heard a whole lot of people come out in support of the design, honestly, from what I've seen. But I do think the opposition is pretty well organized, and they've mobilized fairly effectively. That brings us to now.
I know we talked a little bit yesterday, because it's sort of in the nature of town politics for people to hear something and hate it and then make a Facebook page. And however I feel mostly that it's our job to get all the information, share our opinions, and then do our best to advise, even if they all differ. And it's an interesting topic, because I feel like really business-minded people, some of them are going to hate it, and then really community-oriented people are going to hate it, and so it's not really a hard line like a lot of the things in our community have been. So you want to start still?
I'd like to say that I was the reason this came about, but I won't.
You a recent what?
That the Bay Park design has even been brought forth, but I won't. Because originally, and Bill was here too, and I was appointed, I brought out that someone approached me about the memorial. That's been several years ago. And Joanne was our liaison at the time. Mm-hmm. And so the members, it was 2 councils ago, actually, that said, well, we want CRAB to look into a war memorial. And we got to go ahead to structure that, get an idea of what it would look like and that, and I took it on myself to do that. And then a couple of meetings later, Joanne comes in with a packet thicker than this one, and I think it kind of got buried in my stack, but of back in the 80s when there was a design for a park there already in existence to do that whole street all the way down. And then they start popping out these ideas about these birds statues up and putting these plaques about different things going down the street, and it just kept snowballing. And the war memorial kind of got put on the back burner, that's what started it to begin with at that spot there, because there was nothing else there. And so the first design comes out, it's not even on the design. It was completely ignored, the first draft. Then after talking with the architect and with council, they put it in the draft, that would be a good spot, and let's get that back on the front burner. So they did, and they had some ideas about putting stuff in the concrete that you walk on, and you can see it as you walk. You walk on the stuff and like that, and the disposition was voiced strongly about that, walking on a thing that we're trying not to memorialize, but to honor. And that was glitched, and then we talked about flagpoles. And, simple things that could put up that would bring people to that point. And then all of a sudden, this building comes in from someplace out in left field. Now we're going to put a building for the mooring field and for the observer. And then now we're blocking our view. And again, we get put on the back burner again. To some people, the idea of honoring veterans, dead and alive, is not in their front burner. I'll have to agree with that. But it should be one of the focal points of this town. And I hate hearing, well, Sanibel does this, Cape Coral does this, Bonita Springs does this, Naples has this. What do we have? You know, I hate comparing like that because we're not them, we're Fort Myers Beach. But we are ignoring our veterans on this island. We do not emphasize it enough. We had a commemorating thing at the American Legion for the Vietnam vets. Of course, that got niched because of the virus. It didn't happen, and 'cause I was scheduled to speak there, and Joanne was to be there, and but the town did make that day. They did give a commemoration to the veterans for that day, and we appreciated that. And I had veterans here for that meeting that spoke real point blank, and I think he touched, both of those gentlemen touched a lot of the council members' heart. But now I hear, and you can imagine my feelings when I saw that meeting, and they says, well, for the time being, we're going to take Bay Park and we're going to put that aside, and we're going to focus on recreational area.
Bay Oak?
Bay Oak. And that's what I read. I read that. It says, all right, so we're going to change our focus from off of Bayside or Bayside Park, and we're going to focus on Bay Oaks now. So what happened to our memorial? You know, there we go again. We shifted completely off that. We have spent enough money on Bayside Park to have a very good start on a memorial that would really look nice there and complement the area and would also help Nervous Nellies and the other one next door in Harbor House, the one behind it. It would bring people to that area. And that's the whole idea of this. And they were talking about the tourism and how tourist development money could be used on that, because that would bring people down there. You would have a host of people coming there. I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know how I'm going to get out of it. And being on Crab, it's the only place I can talk about it. Being on LPA, where there's going to be something maybe about that, but as a private citizen, some of the important aspects of Fort Myers Beach is being ignored. We don't know about World War II on Fort Myers Beach. We don't know about World War II. Why Fort Myers Beach is even here? It was because of those soldiers. Fort Myers Beach was actually here. One of the primary concerns was because of the soldiers. The Campanas were built out there on the Gulf because of the soldiers. You know, that's what made this place the place it is. And now we don't care.
What was the last, you said you went to a meeting, they were going to do something, you didn't like it, and so you presented a different idea. Is that what this is when it says Veterans Tribute?
They had a spot for the Veterans Tribute, but what they were wanting to do is put things in the sidewalk.
Like
Yeah.
a walking
They
type?
didn't say, they just said a Veterans Tribute. They never did say exactly what it would be.
Yeah.
It's just,
This was in the previous council.
right.
They had the same discussion.
But I gave you the short version.
Okay.
Okay, you know, because well, I could be here, and I put a lot of time on that, and Bill's helped me with it. He sent me projects on different memorials. We've looked at things, and now Bayside Park is the key and not Memorial.
Just let me kind of just interject here a little bit first, because, yeah, you know, this all happened in a discussion at a presentation in front of the council, and they had a couple of different ideas in how to integrate a memorial into the previous design.
Right.
And one of them was on the ground, and one of them was like posts showing how many people have been lost in different wars. That was not that was actually, could be put, and I think the council decided that it was more appropriate to have something that people were not walking on.
Exactly.
Now, that said, I mean, physical structure probably comes first, and you look at it as a canvas,
Yeah,
because then the memorial works
Happen
in
around it.
within what you can, or else you're really going to be chasing your tail. So I appreciate what you said, and this design, they didn't really have anything except a wall, because I brought it up, and but they're aware of that. But the other thing that's said is that now, if the council decides against this, and we're back to square one.
I was going to say, in their defense, this is now another thing that they've tried to push forward, and the community's like, so every time that happens, it does, whether, just push the war memorial back. But I do think that there's a lot of, whether this happens or not, it is a beautiful spot for some really cool, Veterans Memorial there. I think has at least been something that is always in the back of the mind when they're doing these designs, but again, it's not been to the forefront, and so I understand that being frustrating. Especially, we've all talked about it, the same thing gets on our agenda over and over again and never gets done. So it's okay that that's a frustrating thing. I definitely understand that.
Now, the first thing I had, and I was brought to my attention by council members, for us, it takes time. Government runs slow.
So slow.
But I'm 72 now. I'd like to see it done before I die. And at this rate, it ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Well, maybe
I don't
if
know
we
what it
can,
takes to get somebody on board with this thing.
well, maybe
in the
if we
right
can help
attitude.
them come to terms with something happening on this park, then we can, as a community, make that happen. We need the canvas before we can make it happen. So maybe if we can help
It
the
sounds like the
council.
building is not going to be a part of that canvas
It's-
anywhere in that park.
Well, let's see, so you're anti-building,
Oh, by all means.
okay? How do you feel, Norbert? What have you heard? What do you think?
Well, I'd just like to know what our current situation is before $200,000 on pouring field. Namely, get the name of the marina that services them now under contract. Do you know the name?
Yeah, Matanzas Inn, they're the ones who service the field for 55% of the revenue, which is about 85 grand a year, I think.
What's wrong with that scenario? I mean, it's been working. Do we have any data that says that they don't want the contract, they can't handle the contract, that voters don't like? I mean, do we have any of that information?
Well, the Anchorage Committee, you were there, right?
Oh,
The
yeah.
Anchorage Committee are the ones who brought it forward, wanting something more.
But there are no liveaboards on that committee, as I recall.
Not on the committee, no. And I don't know if the,
So I don't get the rationale that brought this to the forefront, that service that the town provides should require a building on a choice piece of real estate. I just don't, if there was some justification, in other words, what we're doing now is not working, we need to do something else, then it would be possible to listen. But until we have justification, I think it's a waste of time and money, and it ruins a nice piece of real estate.
Now, you looked into
asked
a
my
different
opinion.
site, correct?
well, and Norbert, you were there too, and and we talked about this with the Anchorage Committee, and they really wanted it, and they came in force. But we basically wanted to upgrade it, and they want to run it themselves for a couple of different reasons. They have 2 showers for 70 mooring balls. They're looking at maybe putting more mooring balls in. I went, I looked at, not the showers, but the laundry room. And it's a fairly generic room under the bridge. There's a couple of buildings across the way from the Matanzas Inn. The room themselves it was very clean. It looked nice, the laundry room. They said they could put more bathrooms in there without using more space, because they have I think hotel rooms they've turned into the space. Well, the least appealing thing about it is under the bridge. And that's, when you say meet under the bridge, it usually doesn't entail you're up to some kind of, and there's not sidewalks. It's a little underdeveloped down there. Another option that was not available in the conversation earlier was that the Harbor House has unoccupied space on the ground floor, which is built do the A zone, so it's all waterproofed in, which means they can put plumbing in there downstairs, which is a question I had. I looked at the space. It would be, if it can come to terms, it would be suitable. I mean, it would be better of a service because it's one contiguous space. So instead of one building having a couple of showers and one building having laundry and then another building where you have to go and check in, this is one continuous space. You could have like an area where everyone is with laundry on this side, showers on that side, et cetera, et cetera.
Who runs it, Bill?
Well, the question who runs it is a separate question entirely.
Because how much
Because the
that
last
gonna
thing we
cost?
want is for the town to run it. I mean, just creates no more layers of government employees. And what we have now works quite well.
I asked
Or
Roger.
appears to work well. I don't know that for a fact.
I asked Roger in an email when I first heard about this. I said, this is now owned by us and then we run it. Is this saving us the $85,000 that we're going to save eventually? Will I see that in my tax dollars? And the answer is no. So the community property is what it looks like on the outside. Whether there are, like you're saying, there are some community aspects to it, the initial outlook is, here's your community property, we're going to use it for something that's not community related, and no, you don't get to see any reward for that. That's how it looks, blanket statement wise. So it's like, you have questions. I mean, if I'm going to have an opinion, I want an educated one. And I didn't even think about that. Who's going to run it?
Well, I'll tell you what the plan is, and the plan is that on that second floor, and it's not, the whole building is not like we talked about, it's not utilitarian, there's a lot of different aspects to it. It creates another venue on the upstairs that it could be generate income. It creates a bigger venue on the down level because now you have, people can look at it from different levels. But the idea is that there is an office in that middle floor, and that would have a minimum wage employee who would be there during normal hours. Now that eats up a lot of the 85K. Having an employee. It would also be a ship store. So the basic stuff that boats need, you can get there. Again, if you already have somebody sitting in there, that's potential to make money. Now, the Matanzas Inn has a huge economic benefit is that they already have a hotel and they have somebody sitting there. So it's like dealing with the hotel, same person turns around, dealing with the anchorage. So they have that. But I think there's been some issues. I know like Inn, they control the keys, they said, and I think that's something the town doesn't like, that they're restrictive about, maybe restricting, they think. Obviously, Anchorage Committee once upon a time thought that the service wasn't adequate because they brought this forward. And like I say, I don't really know, but they did. My last conversation with them, if they had their meeting, is they want to look at other options. So certainly from my viewpoint, the Anchorage Committee, who is the ones that are inside, are not wanting a building like this, then I don't want it. That's one of the main drivers for it. I do see benefits for it. I'm kind of an optimist when it comes to that stuff. I think that, if the Anchorage Committee, if they come forward and say that they like other options, then I think that that this won't go anywhere.
On to it.
I don't want to forget my question.
I appreciate your point, Norbert, and public-private partnerships can work as long as both partners are working in the same vein. The town puts a lot of money into the mooring field. We put the balls, maintain them. We have the pumper truck, all that kind of stuff. And we get less than half of the money out of it. Not equitable, and but the owners of I did talk with Doug, and they're willing to, put in more showers, but they kind of expect the town to pay for that remodeling. Which is, mind you, not nearly as expensive as some of this other stuff is.
Go, Becky, go.
I actually talked to a number of people about this, and aren't anyone here north to know. Friends and whatever, going at the So, yes. Good. Lang, what comments were that I got from the community. And really thought, you know, how much money could we make on this? Anything like file for the expenses. Process on it. Dollars is going to have to offset. Maybe more. That was the feedback that I've received. And I just want to throw out, to get back to some has been talking about, I've been on it, and just bring out an idea of some place to live. Veterans Park. It was basically a clamshell. Concerts there. Outside venues. It was totally a public arena. Only for the use of the public, not only the residents, but also the visitors to Fort Myers. Bathrooms there. A lot, but. And they have memorial plaque thanking, realizing all of the veterans and what. And I was thinking to myself, this was just like whoever was doing concert or whatever it may be, out of the rate. And, you know, wouldn't do anything to cause a problem with the viewer or whatever. And that's that it should be a public place. So that, you know, green beach chairs if there's ever. I don't support either unless it benefit to the town for it. Residents of Fort Myers Beach, and then again, I don't actually hit the bottom of the line mooring fields or value. I always thought if you lived aboard, you were able.
Interesting that you mentioned a band shell. Summer and I have been talking about this a lot because we vary in opinion. Things like this, and she was said, you know, a couple years back when this first came up, she was like, let's do an amphitheater. I think that's a great idea. I know Bill's concern is the complaints about Snug Harbor and our noise ordinance. They actually make band shells that, in addition to keeping the force sound forward, that could be something interesting. I do think, you know, coming up with potential ideas is another good thing instead of just, don't like this, but here's an idea we all do like, and some research that we've done. So I think that's really cool. Another question is, I mean, not that bathrooms are bad. Do we need bathrooms down there if it's not for the mooring people? Because nervous, like if you're down there, aren't you patroning a restaurant for the most part?
I was thinking about, you know, you get someone who,
I'm not opposed to it, I'm just curious.
oh, you have to go, you put them in for 5 minutes. Like,
Especially if they build an amphitheater, and then people are there for that, and then you need,
exactly.
or anything.
You know, you get a little older.
Yes, I see that.
Know.
Some new information, and this hasn't really
See
been gone through the town yet, but Snug Harbor, some years ago, they got a variance to build what they have down there on the shore. And one of the conditions of that variance is they have to put in a public bathroom, is where it is, and they haven't done it. So really, the public bathroom may not be an issue, and I don't know, it hasn't, like I said, this is all pretty preliminary, but this was brought to me by a couple of ex-counselors, said that this condition was there, but it hasn't been enforced. So, I mean, either way, there could be a bathroom. I don't know how, if that would look like. I have honestly no idea.
I think, though, that public restrooms at that place would be very,
Yeah.
be big. But I think it's
Yeah.
a service that the town would be wise to support. I think it was Rick Sam that said that in the meeting, and I happen to agree with.
Like I said, I don't think we have to build, because, problem is you want to build a bathroom, then you have, and it's the same thing with the band shell. I mean, the band shell is interesting, but it's going to be opaque. One of the big objections to people is interfering with that view corridor. So, you know what I mean, if it's open. I mean, the other thing is the stage, you saw, if you ignore the building and look at the stage on these drawings, and you see it's minimalist.
Very
It's
minimalist.
roof, it's got some posts. The ideas are to keep it as minimalist to the eye as they possibly can.
But if sound was a concern, then why is the stage there?
Because the stage is there now.
You know what, well, that was like one of the things, like people was like, well, you can't put an amphitheater there because we have a noise ordinance.
Now, if you have a non-opaque and an optically practically invisible kind of stage, then you could also put that on the street side. So that instead of the sound and the speakers pointing towards Harbor House, which is a resident that's right across the street,
Yeah,
it's now pointed out.
it would be interesting.
Looking at some kind of like an acrylic type of thing.
Something that's transparent but acoustically reflective.
Acoustically, I'm not quite certain, so you'd have to, you're not gonna wanna have, sounds or something. Something loud, but, maybe guitarist or
Yeah,
pianist or whatever the case may be, that's not this obnoxious, huge loud sounds.
That's pretty much covered by noise ordinances. I don't think you
Yeah.
can really dictate what kind of music they're going to play.
well, I think
I
that.
mean, keeping it smaller is what I'm
Part
saying,
of-
as far as not so.
I think that might be part of the current ordinance, and then I think has to do with a lot of the past complaints is when there was like rock bands, which would consist of, fully mic'd, full sets of drums and amps, which is a different type of volume level.
Usually a hearing impaired sound man.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a hearing impaired musician, so I understand. Yeah, so I mean, we're known for live music, so, I love the idea that even in this plan, you talked about, venue and an option and all that. I think doing something around, veterans and music is really cool. It's interesting that everyone hates this idea. And I think it was really wise of the council to say, let's put this on hold. And really hard for me, because, my initial opinion, I sent Roger questions, I messaged Christy, I talked to Bill, is, ew, gross, I don't want this. It doesn't feel like it's for the community. And then at the same time, it looks cool, it just, and fancy and shiny and new, but it's really hard because it's like, I think staff is trying to give us something, the wrong thing. Plans like this don't appear overnight, and so a part of me just feels bad that however much work went into this is being, I'm sure this cost quite a bit of money to have these designs drawn up, so anyway, I would love for us to do some research and have some thoughts of some alternatives. It's pretty large consensus that nobody really is into this. And if you know people that, I wrote down some questions. Norbert, you had a really interesting thing. So the Anchorage Committee, no one on the Anchorage Committee actually is a part of the mooring field, is that what it is?
That's my guess. At
Well,
least
no.
at the committee meeting that I went to.
Right. There is, he said liveaboards.
Okay.
Now, by the regulation with the things, you can only have 10% of those mooring balls can be used for liveaboards. The rest of it are transient people who come and go. Because that's what it's designed for, is like a navigational thing, and they get all kinds of grants and stuff for that. It's not low-income housing, it's for people coming and going. One person who has a sailboat there is the chair of the Anchorage Committee.
Okay, so there are people with knowledge and a stake in this.
They are, but they're not also, you said they're not liveaboards, and they're not passing through. So, there are there are different types of people who use a mooring field, and they are one of them, but they're not all of them.
And those folks aren't using the laundry and the showers probably.
Well, they have their own house, yeah.
So that's interesting.
You couldn't be a liveaboard and on Fort Myers Beach.
Yeah, they consider, can they be,
No, and I don't know, they remember getting into residency requirements. I mean, if you're on a boat that's moored there permanently, can you register as being in the town of Fort Myers Beach and be a citizen? I would assume so, because you have to be a citizen, you can be a citizen from somewhere.
I would imagine that our regular people that come each year or come at a certain time and use these facilities, have we gotten opinions? A desire? Are they the ones that, who's, asking for this? I think,
Not coming back.
is that the concern, that we want a higher clientele of?
That is part of it. And
No.
part of the idea is that, because it's kind of like RVers on land, right? These people, these cruisers, they're out and about and they talk to each other. They're
Okay.
one mooring field, they're at another mooring field. And if, Fort Myers Beach has a reputation of having a poor boy facility, you get a certain clientele. If you have a more upmarket place that's comfortable, maybe you get a different clientele. If you get a really posh place, you get something else, maybe.
Maybe.
So those
You
are
also have
potential.
public bathrooms that just any transient person at all day long.
We'll let you know, if you have public space, it's open to the public.
Open to the
You can't
public.
say that you look a little dicey and you look, and you've got to.
I'm just saying, it's a
Because
maybe.
they may not let me there if they want to make those kind of, judgment calls, so.
I mean, it's definitely a maybe. It would be interesting to see if building fancier facilities, other towns have fancier people. I mean, Fort Myers Beach isn't really about fancy people, so it seems like I think it goes back to it seems like this is for non-residents, non-resident property.
Again, well, I'm not going to run the meeting, good. I was just going to say, a portion of this is.
A portion of this. Okay, so the venue upstairs, that's for us. So if I want to hold a concert, is it free to me?
No, but the same thing is, let's say Nervous Nellies wants to get a concession and put a guy up there selling beer for consumption on that roof.
If I want to
They
hold
would
a
have to pay for that
community event
concession.
up there, if Crab wants to throw a party, is that free?
You would have to get a permit.
Okay.
It really depends. I think that let's say the town wants to do a volunteer appreciation party.
Yeah.
Okay?
On property, we can use
Town,
it.
would, Crab wouldn't be paying for that. That would be, and the town wouldn't have to pay himself a fee, I assume, but.
Okay,
Refocus is something that nobody's haven't even mentioned about this building or the mooring fields, all right? And that is that the more balls you have out there, okay, the better chances of our water being cleaner. And the reason for that is that if they're moored to a ball, they have free pump out. They don't pay for that because that's in their $325 a month fee. If we have boats on the left side, as you go over the bridge parked like you do, and there's sometimes 7, 10, and then during season, they can be 15 or 20 parked over there. They are under no obligation of anything. They can dump whatever they want to dump, and you can't catch them because they do it at midnight.
Yeah.
And you don't know what they're doing.
right.
But if you had balls over there, they would have to pay to hook up to those, and in turn, you stop that sewage from coming. Then what happens, you have double the amount of people coming, And Mantanza cannot handle that many people in the position that they have got that built now. So the long-range plans for the Anchorage Committee was to have more balls on the other side so they would have more revenue, and they want the buildings so that they can take care of that extra people.
Who gets the revenue?
Well, the town eventually gets it because they get a portion of that revenue
Portion of it.
from it.
If Matanzas in, it's the same kind of, probably the same kind of split.
Okay.
And Mantanza don't want that over there on the other side because they can't handle all of those people. Or their facility won't handle it.
Hey, can
This
I
is-
interject?
Now, there's your whole thing in a nutshell.
Very good. Maybe the reason that everyone you talk to is against this is that town didn't do a very good job of selling it.
Likely.
I'm not pointing blame at the town, but, you know, a lot of times people's reaction can be molded and controlled. I left that joint meeting that Bill and I were at thinking that building doesn't have a prayer. That was my impression, that there's no way this is ever going to happen. I'm not going to worry about it or even think about it again. Then fast forward, whenever the last former council meeting was that they approved it, that's a very short period of time, and I don't recall hearing or reading that much about it. So maybe it's just a matter of hasn't been presented to the voter in such a way he would embrace it.
Yeah. I would agree to
I
that.
agree, yeah. It's a project without a vocal champion. And, you know, like Sheena said, you know, public media or, you know, this social media can be a huge, powerful
Deal
tool
breaker.
that can be used by somebody and make it seem like it's grassroots when it's really not. I think, though, you know, if you try to read the tea leaves on this, this is what I kind of recommend to Crab, is that let's assume that council is not going to want to go forward with this building.
Yeah.
Unless there's a serious PR effort and a champion who wants to drive it. So if that's the case, that means that there's an alternative, right? The mooring field facilities are in the basement of the Harbor House, or they're where they are, or they're somewhere else. It's not a part of this picture. So then, now you've created a void. We're back to where we were a year ago. Sketches we came up with, making kind of a nautical theme. Well, then, this, I think Crab can be a useful tool to say, okay, without the building, these are our ideas,
Yeah.
what we want. And I think things like, you know, like Becky mentioned, you know, there's places with Veteran Park. They're calling it Bayside Park. We can call it Veterans Park. We can call it Memorial Park. Or we can call the stage Memorial Stage. So if there's a show, where's the show? It's on Memorial Stage. And then the actual memorial itself, I think, and I know, Forrest, you'd like to see this more in the front of the process, but I think first you have to really understand what you're dealing with before you can come up with the best way. And I was impressed with what the designer came up with last time, and the fact that he came up with a couple ideas. One of them didn't fly, one of them did, but there were things that I really didn't think about at all.
Do you still have any of that? Can that be sent to us? Because that's pre-me on any of those designs
You know,
anywhere?
they're out there.
The main one that he came up
If you
with
get a
was,
free minute, like dig through, because you know, you're not busy or anything.
Not at all.
Funny.
You know, it's probably worth, you know, okay, we meet, usually well, we haven't met for a while, but, you know, I would maybe encourage you to go out and, you know, schedule another meeting, and in between that time, people visit the park and try to see what you think look like.
I think I would love, as a committee, since this is on hold, for us to come up with very tangible ideas to council in connection with our opposition.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you.
I think that would be a more great use of our time.
It would be interesting. Maybe be on and off, one of us be there for the park, actually.
And see what's going down. I ride by
See
there
what's going on?
maybe
Show
5 times
different
a week.
ideas to people, ask them what they think. and write it and put everything together,
Yeah,
and then we can really present it as, really did take then the pulse of the island, both
Yeah.
visitors, residents. So if we hung out there and said, what do you think if we did this? Or what ideas do you have? It's not just us. No.
You know, and I think that the people who are affected, they'll come to a meeting, they will also meet you there. The only thing you have to caution is they all have to go independently. You can't, you know, you
Can't
can't
go
have two
together.
CRAB members there.
what if I put together and designed a little like poll thing with maybe 4 options, even this one with, instead of just abrasive, no, we hate this idea, with its pros. So it's a real, because, you know, if we just go in there and insert our opinion, that's great marketing. Leave my way, you know, so it's, and that's not what we're looking for. If you really want to poll people, maybe I could put together something and we can email it. I mean, like me personally, I'll collect emails or something, or ask someone to help me with that. But, can I do that? I'll do that, like just as a person? And then
Yes, you-
send
you
it to
can-
Christy and say, hey, this is what I found out, and she sends it to everybody else?
But you could also come up like just you know, a blank sketch. There's the space.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I was going to say, one thing I really like that you said, Sheena, is that, you know, no is easy and not particularly constructive.
Yeah,
You're saying, here's a different vision.
and if we're going to advise, we should advise from a place of
I think that,
education.
I don't know if this is what happened or not, but to me, it seems like we had one advisory committee that was advising the town council on what they felt should be done at Bay Park. One committee, and that was the Anchorage Advisory Board. There was nobody from CRAB, there was nobody from LPA, there was nobody from whoever. It was one
When was this?
focused committee that was focused on their project, what they wanted to do, because they were in the water. And the council took that. You know, we should have, if you're doing a project, the downtown project looks great, what they're doing downtown. I looked at that, where they're changing all the down, you know, Times Square. And they're changing all that, and it looks good. But who designed that? What committee came up with those ideas? Who did that? I don't know.
Most of the designs, they're done by professionals. They get suggestions and stuff. And I also want to just point out a point there, Norbert, or sorry, Forrest, is that we did have a joint meeting. And Norbert and I were the only ones from CRAB who went there. Anchorage came with everybody. And we were a little ambushed, but we held our own. You know, they came with a plan. We were
Yeah.
just there to look and see what the design was.
Yeah. I think we sort of, as a CRAB committee, sit in this weird kind of in between of what our job is, which I think, new year, here's a project, let's focus on it, instead of 8,000 different things that we kind of spin our wheels about and all get frustrated.
This is also happening in real time.
And this is happening in real time, so I think we can actually make a difference and serve our community, which is why we're all here in the first place. So, if it's okay with you, I'd like to start by sending this email, and then us coming up with ideas, collecting ideas from the community meeting. Okay, and then this can, if you're also okay with it, I would, we could let everything else go off of our agenda.
You say that. There are 2 other projects that are going on.
Yes. The Oaks and all of that.
And one thing that happened, and I'll tell you, I saw a sketch of Bay Oaks with really no explanation. I was given to it by Roger just coincidentally in a meeting. But then the next thing was we have the vote for 30% design on the sketch, and we hadn't really had any discussion as our council. Maybe the previous council did, that I wasn't privy to. Now, since we pretty much we put on hold the guys who are working on this, we told them, well, go ahead and work on that. We're not like paying you off. You have another project to work on. That's something that I think it's worth looking into. And, you know, now there already is BORCAB.
Yeah.
They're like the Anchorage Committee, right? This is their baby. But it may be, maybe, I don't know if you want to get involved with that, or you just want to leave that up to BORCAB.
Well,
You know, we had a joint meeting scheduled, got postponed, and then it got forgotten about.
BORCAB.
Yes.
Want to request a joint meeting with BORCAB?
I mean, if we're going to go down this road, that'd be a place to start.
See, is there something you can do?
If we do that, we are most likely going to have to go virtual.
and I guess my question is
Which I think is all right.
this on our agenda? Is this something we can feasibly help with? Is this council's asking us to help with?
Can't speak for council, but I think that I say go for it. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that, I'm not speaking for council or anything, but, council's not going to meet until August, so council's really not around for this. So if you want to try to have a joint meeting with BORCAB, I think to really maybe, who's the chair of BORCAB?
Am I allowed to just talk to the chair of BORCAB, or is that sunshine law problem?
You can talk
I
to them.
can
It's
call
not a
whoever
sunshine
that
problem.
is?
You can talk to anybody except for the,
I think that not gonna lie, my concern is, I don't want to get involved and help if they don't need my help. I don't want to waste my time. If they have enough voices, use our voices where they'll be heard and they'll count. If this is a thing that they'll be counted, let's do it. Let's have a joint meeting. I'll call this person, but if there's already BORCAB and another group of people and another group of people, what specifically can we do to help? And if there's not a specific thing I can do, like what we're about to do with Bayside Park, research this, come up with a thing, meet with council. Those are some
That's
step-by-step.
a really good point. And I would encourage you to find out who the chair is of BORCAB and say, Crab, do you want our help? Do you not? And if whoever it is open to it, then
Okay,
work together. But if not,
maybe that can be, let me know who that is if you can, or I can Google it, you don't have
No,
to.
it's all right. I was going back and forth with
Before we schedule a meeting.
Sarah Mayer, who is the staff liaison for BORCAB. So back when we were trying to schedule it, there was some conflicts, and then
Yeah. Or
It
tell
got-
Sarah to call me. She might even have my number, I'll text her.
I've not seen anything.
This is my first, but doesn't mean they haven't been talking about it, it just means I haven't paid any
I
attention.
understand that, but from a community resident standpoint, I think that also is part of my question, is that something we as a
I-
should get involved in a little bit to say, does the community know really what's going on out for?
If anything, to do like what Norbert said and make sure that if it is a good thing, it gets presented good. Maybe that is where we can help. I think the first step, though, is
see if we're just sticking our nose where it
see
doesn't
if they
belong.
want our help, and if they don't, let them do their thing.
And that's a really good point, I think. The other point is, okay, and we're not, the CRAB committee is not necessarily the public disclosure committee or the, public speaking committee. It's none of that, we have our, and it's one place, we're kind of the everything else committee, right? But BORCAB has Bay Oaks. But now, Times Square, go BORCAB for Times Square.
there's none for the Anchorage either, because they don't care about those.
Yeah, it doesn't have a liaison for me to call.
See, we are Community Resource Advisory Board for the people, not for just the voters, not for just Times Square, but for everyone on the island. That's what this board is designed for. Am I not right?
That's what the whole council's designed.
Yeah.
For the residents.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, but
To
I'm
be a part of our community, I agree.
you can look at, the other part of it is, if it's a very interconnected group of that we represent, but really voters and the taxpayers are the ones who, pay the bills and
Yeah,
really keep it going.
definitely.
So
That's what I'm saying. That's who we represent.
if visitors want us to put in that building, through probably not as loud of a voice as what the residents who are paying for it really are saying.
Well, I'll put something together, and before I send it out to the masses, I have to make a motion for that to be like on my thing, or can we just decide that I do that?
I think so.
That's it, because it's not,
I mean,
it's personal, not
research.
necessarily to council, okay.
You're not authorizing, you would probably have to make a motion if they're going to authorize you to speak as.
On behalf.
On behalf of CRAB, but you're speaking as yourself, which is probably the best way to go at this point.
Yes.
Then I
Okay.
don't think it's necessary.
So as myself, I am going to put out a poll, which I'll send to Christy first before I figure out how to do the rest, so you guys can sort of see it. If anybody has any, don't write that,
But I think also, everybody is like Becky has shown, you're talking to people about the building. Okay, now let's change the conversation about what you think it should be.
I think a really valuable poll, for lack of a better word, poll, would be maybe several options and pros of those options. And then I may even write at the bottom, do you have a different idea? If you do, send me that too. And then compile that information in a good way for our next meeting.
There are some things, people are going to have ideas that can be problematical, like, and I put it out too, those little bubble fountains where the water shoots up and the kids love it so much. Those, I guess, are a real maintenance problem when you're in our environment.
Oh, yeah.
And salt.
And it's,
Well, and if we couldn't have a fountain, let's maybe not get a fountain again, even though I don't, that was a different staff and a different everything, so, I mean, I'm sure that could be reapproached too. Someone sent me, I think my friend Mary Rose, a really cool kids park that was all musical instruments. And it was a really cool little area with, big giant things that make music. Maybe not, so. It was a really cool article. I can send that to you too, to be sent. Okay, so where are we now in this meeting? What's happening?
Do you want to talk about Times Square?
Well, who's in charge of what's going on in Times Square, and is this the whole plan?
Oh, they have a much more elaborate
it's all been approved.
thing, and I don't quite know where it is, but, the council has been really dealing with this.
Is it already approved moving forward? Do they need
Is
our opinion?
getting close to 50%. There's definitely more to be done, and it will come up, and I'm sure,
And the businesses are happy with the process, and they're adding, even going to do more to their frontage that the town doesn't have to pay for.
Yeah, that's great.
It's,
what it's going to be, and if you look at this, I can tell you kind of simply, all little triangle bits are like the solar sails, the ones, the shade sails.
Yeah,
The round thing in on the left-hand side is like a permanent stage. Now, it won't be a real high, I think it won't be a real elaborate thing, but it's a permanent stage. And the bits around the buildings are going to be these stainless steel louvers.
yeah.
And so the idea is that when you want sun, they're up. When shade or it rains, they go
Oh.
down, and and it'll give it'll look more urban, I guess. I don't know what really the phrase do, but certainly look more modern. Instead of the
Modern.
umbrellas, we'll have just chairs sitting underneath these things.
Cool. Will that be helpful to some of the right-of-way discussions between businesses and what they're allowed and how far they're
They'll have more
Is that
room.
helpful, or?
Well, I think they've already marked that. They're allowed what they're allowed, and then they're
Yeah.
kind of limited by fire department access and other kind of right-of-way things. So I don't think they're getting any more space necessarily, but it gives it more of a unified look. It's more about the visual impact, I think.
Wasn't there some discussion, Bill, though, that like on the side where there are no tables, like where the Dairy Queen is and vendors, that area would be covered as well and then be a candidate for more seating?
No, I think that side, they're allowed to do the same kind of thing.
But no one's doing it.
We're doing, because the other side of their building is beach,
Okay.
except for the Dairy Queen.
My understanding, we're going to cover that, though. The part that's not being used?
No, I'm looking at, and again, I don't know where they are with this. It might come out to be a big surprise like the Bayfront was. Here it just shows trees.
Yeah,
Well, I got that from that joint meeting we went to, because that meeting discussed a lot of things, not just the anchorage.
Yep.
And that's what I recall from that meeting, when the discussion of design.
The Achilles heel in that whole project is the Times Square clock.
Yeah,
They
right.
can't decide what to do with that. Whether you get rid of it, leave it, or make
Do
something.
you still want to call it, have a clock and call it Times Square?
Yeah, that's,
And I understand there's just different sizes of people who've been here a long time. It's been Times Square. When I first came here, I thought it's a little presumptuous calling this Times Square.
hey,
You know,
tiny Times Square, TS.
no more rebranding.
So I guess again, I go back to the question, do they need our help? Do they want our opinion?
I'd like to make a motion.
Like it.
Come up with some kind of a recommendation, a refocus for Bayfront Park. Add that to our agenda as an action item for all.
You probably usually do that at the set agenda section.
I was trying to get there.
Adjournment.
Norbert is trying to let us go home.
That's good.
Let's,
I do think, let's just, I'm just gonna say this, not an action item or anything, but I think that if Chrissy can find the latest plans, there can be more plans coming out, it probably makes sense for you guys to be, at least know what's out there now. So when the next step comes, you're not all like Bayfront going, like most of us with Bayfront going, where did this come from?
yeah.
It's out there. I mean, there's more information than this out there, and although I think it's not as contentious as some of the other places, the other things.
Yeah, I don't think Times Square has as much contention, again, and has never been on our agenda. Bayside Park has been on our agenda in the past. So I think that's what caused today's meeting. Is there anything else besides that anybody would like to discuss? There's no public comment. I believe Norbert's already said what our agenda for our next meeting is.
At least one item.
Is there anything else you'd like to put on our next agenda?
The next agenda, well, you can clean up all this other stuff. If you want to get rid of things, this is as a committee, you can decide. If you want to just put Bayfront Park in there, if you want to keep, War Memorial's kind of included in that, although you can keep it as a separate item to make sure it's on the radar. I still want to get my hands around this, texting app, brochure, map thing, because it seems like I'm looking for a coherent strategy in the midst.
Maybe, I'm just asking a question here, not under anything, just. Is there a reason? I'd be very interested in. How much would this be offset of mooring field money? So, question comes up, does this make sense financially for the, a couple of the comments I heard about negative, and it's all about the township. I can't respond to any of it. I don't have a clue. So my assumption is that is there a reason that we don't have that, or is it not appropriate for us?
Are we allowed to have that information?
So I had received an email from Bill about 1 o'clock today asking to bring all of this to you guys.
Okay.
The Public Works is the one in charge of any kind of hardscape in these projects.
Okay.
So what I received was directly from her, the director. So I would have to put in a request for more information if that's what you're looking for, which I can do.
I'd really like to know a couple of things. What are the estimated costs project? And what are the anticipated revenues for the project unless you know what revenues are? I'd like to see that whole analysis based on what are our current revenues and what this building is going to mean for projected revenue. That's not been done.
It's been, they have estimated costs. The costs have changed. They've had to estimate, they do have estimated costs on these three projects, but they change. I mean, if a whole building changes, the whole design fundamentally changes, the costs change. So things are a little transient. I do think, though, that, government's job is not necessarily to be profitable. We tend to do things for the greater good as opposed to our bottom line. And sometimes things like where we are particularly, our budget is not that affected by COVID, our town budget. Parking is the big thing that really took a hit. And the reason why is we don't get sales tax revenue. We don't have a share of the businesses here.
The county's affected.
County, and we're affected indirectly, but, we don't really get that kind of money, for good or bad, right? But now, because we don't get it, we're not that affected. But, let's say you build something, let's say the business model was that, okay, we're going to build this facility, and we are going to get better boats, and we're going to have a bigger mooring field, it's going to be more money, but that's also going to be more people coming onto the island, not in their cars. They're going to be here, and they're going to be spending money in businesses, and they're going to be helping those businesses do better. That is a benefit that the town doesn't really see directly, financially, but it's for the greater good.
And I do understand that.
Yeah.
Profit for.
I do have a little
Long time.
information from this email I just reread from Roger. He said, I had asked if there's savings. There is savings due to no longer having a contract with Matanzas. Will that be passed down onto taxpayers? He said, no, that $85,000 per year will be used to help offset the costs to build, staff, and operate a new facility. There are some people that prefer to rent, AKA our deal with Matanzas, and some people prefer to own town facility, which is a more expensive option in the short term, but perhaps better in the long term. Due to the extremely low interest rates that are currently available, the projected cost to the average homeowner, if Bay Oaks, Bayside Park, and Times Square are redeveloped, is about $100 a year or $8.50 per month. $8.50 per month. The Bayside Park project represents a little over 1/10 of the total. This amount can be accommodated in the existing millage if council agrees.
I'd like this committee.
I'm sure they would be willing to share. Roger was very quick to answer my questions, so I'm
And
sure.
I'm sure it's already
I'm pretty
finished.
sure even
You've done a
as,
whole
yeah,
analysis on all of it.
The only thing I caution before you put too much work into it, see where it goes. You know what I mean? It's a piece of the puzzle, but it sounds like we said this project doesn't have a champion, and I'm thinking that building maybe doesn't have a great probability of going through, and so if you want to put the work into something that happened as opposed to,
I'm actually curious because, as I said, at least two people said to me, not positive about the building, laid it out that the town to myself, I don't really see. I couldn't apply to it. If I see a pro forma, no, it was to bring visitors in or to investor to do that. Not really a money type of the situation for. Times Square and the same. I'm going to request if we're going to look at these, just whatever pro forma exists, stay on it. Because I'm sure they haven't gone this.
I'm sure we have it, and it's really accessible if we ask staff. We just probably haven't asked staff for it because it's,
Yeah, because
Yes.
I've never seen that, and I think it's because we just never asked for it.
yeah, we've
'cause
just
I'm
never
sure
asked. We need to
have-
just ask for it.
Have done a lot of this work. Got it. Okay, this is an offset. But you look at what we're doing here. Want to do this.
I think that,
I think that the thing to be was if we get the Times Square done and Bay Park done, that we're gonna get some of our maybe South End people coming north instead of going south. If we have a showpiece there, they will come. Without that, they're happy, and they're not gonna promote downtown. They're not. And we want them to come.
Unless there's something. That's what this is all. Okay. I mean, I'm just being perfectly honest. I mean, how? Like a salmon. This season. But off season, I don't disagree. Are more interested in going down, not having a fight. This is a place to start, but just looking at a pretty picture doesn't help. I agree, but Bill said too, it's more than just a financial benefit. But bluntly, costs. How are we doing it? Benefit. More of a benefit there. Much more attractive area than you're going to work in.
I mean, I think we've definitely, I don't think any of us are against events. And is that something you can find out, or should I reach out to Roger and just ask? Is that a better way to do that?
I'll reach out to the Public Works Director and see where I get, and
Okay.
then I'll let you know.
Let me know if I need to push on the other side, then I will go that route. Yeah, I think like this is cool. We all have a lot of really good ideas. We've done a lot of research on some other things that we can all tie in. So when it comes to our next meeting, we should have before the council meets, if that's a possibility. And you guys are into it. I'm with Norbert. Let's one step at a time. We don't have the information to do anything more. And if everyone's good for that, I'd like to move to a meeting.
Do we have a motion on the floor, or did he not make a motion?
Well, do you make a motion to set an agenda? It's just item,
I agree with Robert recommended. And
is that motionable? It's been a while.
Has been.
Let's just say that it is to cover our bases. All in favor?
I.
Aye. Awesome. And, okay, let's get out of here. Meeting adjourned. Peace out. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for your service. I know everybody's got stuff going on. Well, maybe not